They said you were crazy, now they call you a genius. You heard the whispers, felt the stares, endured the mockery. They'll never make it, they scoffed. What do they know? They laughed. But guess what? The tables have turned, and now those who doubted you are left speechless. They're not laughing anymore. Their smug grins have faded, replaced with wide eyes and uneasy silence. The same ones who mocked your vision are now watching in awe, desperate to understand how you saw what they couldn't. You didn't just survive their ridicule, you thrived despite it. And now, the spotlight's on you. They're scrambling to rewrite their narrative, but it's too late. The truth is out, and it's clear as day. You were right all along. But here's the twist. You didn't need their approval then, and you don't need it now. The victory isn't in proving them wrong, it's in knowing you never wavered. While they clung to their illusions, you stood firm in your truth. And today, that truth has humbled your enemies, silenced the doubters, and made the joke land squarely on them. If you're done being underestimated, if you're ready to rise above the noise and claim the power that's been yours all along, it's time to take action. Like this video to declare your strength, subscribe to stay connected with others on the same path, and share this message with someone who needs to wake up and see what's really going on. Drop a comment with "I see clearly now" if you're ready to step into your destiny. Welcome, chosen ones. They thought they had the last laugh, didn't they? They mocked your ideas, your vision, and your drive. They threw around labels: dreamer, crazy, out of touch, thinking they had you figured out. But now, as the tides have shifted, it's their arrogance that looks ridiculous. The same people who once mocked you are now forced to face the undeniable truth. You were always 10 steps ahead. They're scrambling, fumbling to catch up, trying to piece together the wisdom you've carried all along. Their laughter has turned to nervous glances and forced politeness. Their confidence shattered by the sheer power of your clarity. They're choking on their own disbelief, and you're standing tall, steady, and unshaken. This isn't just your victory, it's a reckoning. The tables have turned and there's no going back. You didn't just prove them wrong, you made them irrelevant. Now their mockery is nothing more than the faint echo of a past they can't erase, while you move forward, unbothered and unstoppable. This is your moment, chosen ones. They finally see it. The question is, are you ready to rise? Chosen one, if you're ready, truly ready, to step into the power that's been within you all along and claim the victory you've always known was yours, prove it. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this message with someone still stumbling in the fog of doubt and denial. Drop a comment below with 77 if you're done being underestimated, done staying silent while carrying a truth that others refuse to see, and ready to rise into your destiny. The truth has always been waiting for you. Are you bold enough to step up and answer the call? Let's begin. Number 1. From crazy to how did you know? They called you crazy, didn't they? Said you were out of touch, paranoid, or living in a fantasy world. That will never happen, they scoffed. You're overthinking it, they laughed. Every word you spoke was dismissed as nonsense. Every warning you gave brushed off like a speck of dust on their pristine illusions. But now, their laughter has been replaced with stunned silence, and their scoffs have turned into hesitant questions. Wait, how did you know? Oh, how the tables have turned. The very ones who mocked you are now scrambling for answers, their confidence shattered, their egos bruised. Reality has a way of hitting harder than mockery ever could. The truth they refused to see is now staring them in the face, undeniable and unyielding, and suddenly you don't look so crazy anymore. All truth passes through 3 stages, said Arthur Schopenhauer. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. You've lived through every stage, haven't you? They ridiculed you, then fought against everything you stood for, and now they're forced to confront the reality they once rejected. And you've stood steady through it all, weathering their ignorance and arrogance, knowing that the truth doesn't bend. It waits. It wasn't about the logic of your words. It was about the mirror you held up to their insecurities. They mocked you because they feared what you represented. Clarity they couldn't grasp, a perspective they couldn't comprehend, and a foresight they were too blind to see. Crazy wasn't a reflection of you. It was a defense mechanism to protect themselves from what they didn't want to face. But the truth doesn't need their permission to exist, and it certainly doesn't wait for their approval to unfold. Now, as the world aligns with what you've always known, they're left scrambling to rewrite the past, pretending they always had a feeling. But you remember their words, the sneers, the laughs, the smug dismissals. They clung to their ignorance like a life jacket in a storm, thinking it would keep them afloat. But ignorance isn't a shield. It's an anchor, and the tides of reality are merciless. Now, they're gasping for understanding, looking to you for the clarity they once mocked. The same lips that called you delusional now whisper, "You were right." But here's the kicker. You don't need their validation. You never did. Their disbelief was never a reflection of your truth. It was a testament to their limitations. The vindication you feel now isn't about proving them wrong. It's about surviving the storm they couldn't handle. So stand tall, chosen one. Their regret is not your burden, and their awakening is not your responsibility. You were right all along, and the truth. It was never crazy. It was just too much for them to comprehend. They're questions now. They're not about understanding. They're about catching up. And you? You've already moved on, leaving them to grapple with the weight of what they once refused to see. Number 2. The quiet ones always hit the hardest. Still waters run deep. They heard the phrase, but they never understood it, not until now. For them, noise was power, attention was validation, and silence, well, they mistook that for weakness, but now they know better. Your silence wasn't empty. It was a weapon, a force they couldn't comprehend. And when it finally struck, it hit harder than they could have ever imagined. While they ran their mouths, desperate to prove themselves, you stood still. You didn't need their approval, their applause, or their attention. Your strength wasn't in shouting over them. It was in observing, waiting, and knowing. You were the storm building on the horizon, silent and unstoppable. "Why don't you say anything?" they asked, mistaking your quiet resolve for passivity. But silence has a power they could never grasp. Words can be denied, arguments can be dismissed, but silence lingers. It forces people to sit with their thoughts, their insecurities, their fears. And in your silence, you held a mirror to their arrogance, their ignorance, their fragile egos. They thought the loudest voice in the room would win. They thought dominance came from shouting, pointing fingers, and drowning out dissent. But power doesn't come from noise, it comes from presence. And your presence? It spoke volumes without ever saying a word. While they were busy chasing validation, you were busy watching their moves. They were so loud, they didn't even realize you were 10 steps ahead. Every argument they made was a distraction, every insult a desperate attempt to hide their own inadequacies. But you didn't need to respond. You let time expose their weaknesses for you. Patience is not passive, it is concentrated strength. They didn't realize that your silence wasn't hesitation, it was strategy. You weren't waiting for their approval, you were waiting for the moment when their illusions would crumble under the weight of reality. And now, here you are. They've burned themselves out, their noise fading into nervous mutters and embarrassed silences. The power they thought they had is gone, replaced by the quiet weight of their own mistakes. And you're still standing, calm and unshaken, while they try to pick up the pieces of their shattered certainty. They finally understand that silence isn't emptiness, it's control. The quiet ones aren't weak, they're deliberate. They don't waste energy on battles that time will win for them. And you've proven that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. Now they're haunted by your silence, realizing it was never about avoiding the fight. It was about winning without wasting a breath. And as they scramble to rewrite the past, they can't escape the truth staring them in the face. The quiet ones always hit the hardest. So let them fumble, chosen one. Let them wrestle with the echoes of their own arrogance. You've already moved on, stronger, wiser, and untouched by the noise that once surrounded you. Number 3. They laughed until they realized the joke was on them. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Oh, how they laughed. Loud, smug, and full of false confidence, they mocked your every move, every word, and every idea. You were their favorite punchline, the dreamer they dismissed, the fool they thought would never amount to anything. Their laughter wasn't just noise, it was their way of protecting themselves from the uncomfortable truth you carried. But now, the joke's on them. Their smug grins have disappeared, replaced with furrowed brows and uneasy stares. They've gone from laughing at you to nervously glancing in your direction, wondering how they missed what was right in front of them. Reality has a way of humbling even the loudest critics, doesn't it? When they laughed, it wasn't about you, it was about them. Mockery is the shield of the insecure, the weapon of those who fear what they don't understand. Your vision, your ideas, your truth. It was too much for them to process, so they turned it into a joke. But humor has a way of wearing thin when the punchline turns out to be your own arrogance. Now, as the dust settles, they're left grappling with the undeniable. You were right all along, and that laughter they once threw at you, it rings hollow in their memories, a bitter reminder of their own ignorance. It's not just that you've proven them wrong, it's that they can't deny it anymore. Look around, chosen one. Their wide-eyed stares and nervous fidgeting tell you everything you need to know. They laughed because they thought they understood the game, but now they're realizing they were playing checkers while you were mastering chess. The irony is almost poetic. The same voices that mocked you are now silent, choking on the realization that they were the fools all along. And you? You don't even need to say, "I told you so." Their regret is written all over their faces. So let them stew in their discomfort. Let them wrestle with the weight of their own mistakes. The joke isn't funny anymore, not to them. And for you, it's just the beginning of your rise. Because here's the truth. They didn't laugh because you were wrong. They laughed because deep down they feared you might be right. And now, that fear has become their reality. Number 4. The face they make when the truth hits home. There's nothing more painful than realizing you were wrong, especially when the person you mocked was right all along. You've seen it. That moment when the truth smashes into someone like a freight train, shattering their carefully constructed illusions. It's not subtle, it's a mix of disbelief, embarrassment, and fear. Their eyes widen as if searching for a way to escape. Their lips press into a thin line, struggling to form words that won't come. And their arrogance. It dissolves faster than they can process. This is the face of realization, the face they make when the truth hits home. It's not just the sting of being wrong, it's the humiliation of remembering every scoff, every sneer, every mocking laugh they threw your way. Those moments replay in their mind like a broken record, but now the joke's on them. The same confidence that fueled their derision has turned into the weight of their shame. You stood there, unshaken, watching them unravel as the reality they denied finally stood before them, undeniable and relentless. They mocked what they didn't understand, dismissed what they couldn't comprehend, and now they're choking on the bitter taste of regret. The face they make isn't just about being wrong, it's about knowing they underestimated the wrong person. You were never the fool they made you out to be. They were. And now they know it. The confidence they flaunted has turned into the quiet terror of realizing they were blind all along. Let them sit with it, chosen one. Let them wrestle with the weight of their own arrogance. The truth didn't just hit, it exposed. And you don't need to say a word. Their face says it all. Number 5. When reality slaps harder than their mockery. You can deny reality, but you can't escape the consequences of denying reality. For so long they hid behind their laughter, convinced it would shield them from the truth. Mockery was their armor, their way of pretending that your words didn't carry weight. But reality doesn't laugh. It strikes with the force of a freight train, and it doesn't miss. The mockery they threw your way was their attempt to silence you, to discredit what they couldn't understand. You're overthinking it, they said. That'll never happen, they scoffed. They laughed loudly, not because they were confident, but because they were terrified of what your clarity exposed. And then it happened. The truth arrived, not gently, but as an undeniable, unrelenting slap. The cracks in their illusions became too big to ignore, and the lies they clung to crumbled under the weight of undeniable facts. The reality you'd been warning them about stood before them, unyielding and absolute, and suddenly their laughter felt small, weak, and meaningless. Why didn't you tell us? They might ask now, scrambling for some way to salvage their pride. But you did tell them. You told them with clarity, patience, and unwavering certainty. They didn't listen, not because you were wrong, but because they weren't ready to face the discomfort of the truth. Mockery is easy. It's comfortable. It's a way to distract from the hard work of confronting reality. But reality doesn't care about comfort, and it certainly doesn't care about their jokes. When it hit, it left no room for excuses, no space for denial. And now, they're left standing in the wreckage, realizing that their laughter was a hollow defense against what was always inevitable. And you didn't need to fight back. You didn't need to shout over their noise or sink to their level. Reality did all the talking for you. Every scoff, every dismissive smirk, every joke at your expense now echoes back at them, louder than ever. The hardest part for them isn't just that they were wrong, it's that they mocked you for being right. Now, as they stand in the rubble of their own arrogance, they finally see the truth. Reality slaps harder than any mockery ever could. And you're still standing, unshaken, and miles ahead. Number 6. Seeing what they couldn't handle. People don't fear the unknown, they fear what the unknown demands. You saw it long before they did. The cracks in the facade, the hidden truths buried beneath their comfortable lies, the storm brewing on the horizon. You saw what they refused to see because acknowledging it would have forced them to change. And change? That was too much for them to handle. They didn't dismiss you because you were wrong. They dismissed you because you were too right, too soon. Your clarity wasn't just inconvenient. It was a direct threat to the illusion they clung to. While you faced reality head-on, they shielded their eyes, pretending the truth didn't exist. You're imagining things, they told you. You're making it more complicated than it needs to be. They couldn't comprehend how you saw what they couldn't, how your vision cut through the noise to reveal what was real. But seeing clearly has always been your gift, and your burden. Ignorance isn't just bliss, it's a fortress. They fortified themselves with comforting lies, convinced that as long as they stayed within its walls, they'd be safe. But you stood outside, unprotected, staring directly into the storm they pretended wasn't coming. And now, the truth they couldn't handle has arrived, unapologetic and unrelenting. It doesn't care about their denials or their comfort. The reality they avoided is here, and they're left scrambling to catch up, choking on the very lies they built their lives around. The hardest part isn't that they didn't see it. It's that deep down, a part of them always did. They felt the weight of your words, the truth buried in your warnings, but they buried it under denial because facing it was too terrifying. It wasn't ignorance, it was fear. But fear doesn't stop reality, and neither does denial. Now, they're left grappling with the consequences of what you always knew, struggling to make sense of the clarity they once mocked. And you don't need their validation. You didn't see the truth to win their approval. You saw it, because that's who you are. You carried a vision they couldn't bear to face, and now, as they stumble in the ruins of their illusions, your strength is undeniable. Seeing what they couldn't handle wasn't your weakness. It was your greatest power. And now, they finally know it. Number 7. While they played victim, you played the long game. Victimhood is the easiest excuse for inaction. They cried foul, pointing fingers at anyone but themselves. They painted themselves as victims, trapped by circumstances they created, shackled by losers they refused to let go of. But while they were busy playing the victim, you were playing the long game. You weren't interested in pity or excuses. You were focused on building something real. While they blamed, you strategized. While they wallowed, you prepared. While they sought attention for their supposed struggles, you quietly worked toward something bigger, something lasting. They were looking for sympathy. You were looking at the end game. Their victimhood was their comfort zone, a way to deflect responsibility and shield themselves from accountability. It's not my fault, they'd say, as if absolving themselves from the mess they were in would somehow fix it. But you knew better. You knew that nothing changes until you take ownership. And while they were busy crying over spilled milk, you were already planting seeds for the future. And now, the difference is crystal clear. They're still spinning their wheels, looking for someone else to blame, while you're miles ahead, reaping the rewards of your patience and foresight. The long game is always underestimated by those too blinded by the need for immediate gratification. They couldn't see past the next move, but you saw the whole board, every piece in play, and every potential outcome. Luck favors the prepared, they say, but luck had nothing to do with it. Your success was built on focus, patience, and relentless determination. You didn't react to their noise or get caught up in their drama. You let them play the victim because you knew time would tell the truth. And here we are. Their cries for attention have faded into irrelevance, while your actions speak louder than their excuses ever could. They thought their victimhood was a shield, but all it did was weigh them down, keeping them stuck while you moved forward. You didn't win because they lost. You won because you stayed true to your path. The long game isn't for the faint of heart, but you played it perfectly, and now they're left watching your rise, wondering how they missed what was right in front of them all along. The truth is simple. While they played the victim, you were playing chess. And now, checkmate. Number 8. When their ego was their undoing. Pride comes before destruction, and an arrogant spirit before a fall. They thought they were untouchable. Their ego whispered lies, telling them they were invincible, untouchable, destined to always be on top. But ego isn't strength. It's a ticking time bomb, and when it explodes, it takes everything with it. They mocked you, not because you were wrong, but because their ego couldn't handle the truth you carried. The illusion of superiority is a fragile thing, and your clarity was a threat they weren't equipped to face. So they doubled down, built themselves up higher, and laughed louder to drown out the quiet voice in their head that whispered, "What if they're right?" But here's the thing about standing on a pedestal built of arrogance. It doesn't take much for it to crumble, and when it falls, the higher they've climbed, the harder they hit the ground. Their ego blinded them, made them believe they were beyond reproach, beyond failure. But reality doesn't care about their ego. It doesn't bend, it doesn't wait, and it doesn't negotiate. They fought so hard to protect their pride, and in the end, that pride became their undoing. The higher they held their heads, the less they saw the ground shifting beneath their feet. And you didn't need to push them, they toppled themselves. All it took was the weight of the truth, a truth they couldn't carry because their ego had no room for humility. Their downfall wasn't a surprise, it was inevitable. Ego isn't a foundation, it's a trap. It blinds, it isolates, and it silences the voice of reason. They built walls of arrogance to protect themselves, but those walls only trapped them. And when the world shifted, when the truth demanded to be seen, their fortress turned to dust. And now, they're left staring at the wreckage, their pride scattered at their feet, wondering how it all fell apart. But you knew. You always knew. You didn't need to shout or argue or fight. You watched quietly as their ego dug a hole they couldn't climb out of. This is the reckoning of arrogance, chosen one. Their ego was their undoing, and their downfall wasn't your victory. It was their lesson. A lesson that pride is not power, and arrogance is not strength. Let this be a reminder. Humility isn't weakness. It's the foundation of wisdom. While they let their ego guide them to ruin, you let truth guide you to victory. Stand tall, steady, and unshaken, for their fall is not your burden to bear. You've risen above it all, stronger, clearer, and unstoppable. Their ego destroyed them. Your vision saved you. That's the difference. Number 9. You were the storm they never saw coming. The storm doesn't announce its arrival. It builds silently, steadily, until it's too late to prepare. They thought they had you figured out. Quiet, unassuming, perhaps even a little too humble for their liking. They mistook your calm for weakness, your patience for passivity, and your silence for insignificance. Little did they know, you weren't just standing still, you were building momentum. You were the storm they never saw coming. While they were busy playing small games and chasing cheap victories, You were strategizing. While they laughed and mocked, you worked in the shadows, sharpening your skills, honing your vision, and preparing for the moment the world would hear your thunder. They didn't see it coming because they weren't paying attention, and by the time they realized the truth, it was too late. You didn't need to announce yourself. Storms don't scream for attention. They simply arrive. And when you did, it wasn't a gentle breeze. It was a force of nature that left no room for denial. Their laughter was swept away, their arrogance flattened, and their illusions scattered like leaves in the wind. They underestimated you, chosen one. That was their first mistake. Their second, thinking you were playing by their rules. But you don't play games. You create the conditions for transformation. And when you rise, it's not for their approval. It's because your time has come. Now they're left in the wreckage, scrambling to understand how they missed the signs, how they overlooked the quiet force that was building right under their noses. But the truth is simple. You were never weak. You were the storm gathering strength, and when you struck, there was nothing they could do to stop you. So stand tall, steady, and unapologetic. You were the storm they never saw coming, and you've only just begun. Number 10. The pain of knowing before they were ready to see clearly. When others are blind isn't just a gift, it's a burden. Knowing the truth before others can accept it isn't as glamorous as it sounds. It's lonely, isolating, and at times, excruciating. You carried a vision they couldn't handle, a clarity they couldn't comprehend. While they clung to their illusions, you stood alone, bearing the weight of what they refused to see. It wasn't their ignorance that hurt. It was their refusal to even try to understand. They mocked you, not because you were wrong, but because your insight unsettled them. You were a mirror reflecting their denial, and they couldn't bear the discomfort. They laughed to protect themselves, to shield their fragile egos from the weight of what you represented, the truth they weren't ready to face. And you felt it, didn't you? The sting of being labeled crazy, paranoid, or too much. You stood firm in your knowledge, but deep down, there was pain in the rejection. It wasn't just the disbelief. It was the realization that they weren't ready for the clarity you offered. You saw the storm coming while they basked in the sunlight, oblivious to the dark clouds forming on the horizon. The pain of knowing is more than being ahead. It's knowing the struggle they'll face when reality finally hits. You wanted to warn them, to protect them, to show them a better way. But they weren't ready. They clung to their comfort zones, their egos, their illusions. And so you stood alone, watching as they laughed at the very truth that would one day shake their world. But here's the thing, chosen one. The pain of knowing is also the power of knowing. You endured the ridicule, the isolation, and the misunderstanding because you knew the truth doesn't need their approval to exist. And when the day came, when reality arrived with all its force, you were prepared. They weren't. Now they're scrambling, blindsided by what you saw all along. The very ones who dismissed you are looking to you for answers, desperate for the clarity they once mocked. And you? You don't carry bitterness, you carry wisdom. The pain of knowing has made you stronger, sharper, and unshakable. It's a heavy burden, but it's also your greatest strength. You bore the weight of truth when no one else could, and now you stand tall, proven, and unstoppable. The pain of knowing? It's a small price to pay for the power of being right. Number 11. Winning without ever playing their game. The greatest victory is not in defeating others at their own game, but in refusing to play it while rising above them. They wanted to drag you into their chaos. Their game was one of noise, distraction, and petty power plays. They wanted you to fight on their terms, to engage in their endless cycle of blame, mockery, and shallow validation. But you didn't take the bait. You didn't stoop to their level. Instead, you chose a different path, your own. While they squabbled over scraps, you were building a feast. While they wasted time trying to win meaningless battles, you were playing for something far greater: purpose, progress, and truth. They thought you were avoiding confrontation, that your silence was surrender. What they didn't realize is that you were moving in a different dimension altogether, one they couldn't comprehend. Winning doesn't mean beating them at their own game. It means proving that their game never mattered in the first place. You didn't need their validation, their applause, or their acknowledgement. The moment you stopped engaging with their petty tactics was the moment you won. You rose above the noise, untouchable and unstoppable, while they burned themselves out trying to tear you down. Now they're left confused, frustrated, and defeated, not because you fought harder, but because you never fought at all. You didn't need to. Their energy was spent on trivial battles, while yours was focused on building something unshakable. And when the dust settled, the difference was undeniable. They were still stuck in the same cycle, and you had already moved forward, miles ahead. This is the power of not playing their game. They sought to trap you in their world, but you created your own. And now, as they grapple with the futility of their actions, you stand victorious, not because you played, but because you didn't need to. Your success speaks louder than their noise ever could. Number 12. Your time is now. The reckoning has arrived. The moment you've been waiting for isn't in the distance. It's here, and it's yours to claim. Chosen one. The time for waiting is over. The doubts, the mockery, the whispers behind your back, they're all echoes of a past that no longer holds power over you. The reckoning has arrived, and it's not just for those who doubted you, it's for you. It's your moment to rise, to step fully into the purpose that's been calling you all along. Everything you've endured, the ridicule, the isolation, the rejection, was preparation. It wasn't wasted. It was sharpening you, molding you into the unstoppable force you are today. While they doubted, you prepared. While they laughed, you built. And now, as the world catches up to what you've always known, there's no stopping the truth that's finally breaking through. Look around. The tables have turned, and those who once dismissed you now look to you with awe and envy. Their disbelief has crumbled under the weight of your clarity, your perseverance, your undeniable strength. But this isn't about them. This moment is about you. It's about reclaiming your power, your vision, and your destiny. This is your reckoning, not one of vengeance, but of vindication. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. Your success is proof enough. You didn't just survive their doubt, you thrived in spite of it. And now, the spotlight is yours, the narrative is yours, the future is yours. So stand tall, chosen one. Embrace the power that's always been within you. Your time isn't coming, it's here. The reckoning has arrived, and you are the force driving it forward. This is your victory. This is your moment. Take it. Own it, and let the world see what happens when the unstoppable finally meets its moment of destiny. The stage is yours. Go claim it. So now, what's next, chosen one? If you're done waiting for others to catch up, if you're ready to stop playing small and rise into the full power that's been within you all along, it's time to take action. The world might not always understand your clarity, but that doesn't mean you should stop sharing it. If you're ready to step into your truth and claim the power of knowing exactly who you are, hit that like button, subscribe, And share this message with someone who needs to wake up to the truth. Drop a comment below with, "I'm ready," if you're done waiting and ready to rise. Let's keep this momentum going. The truth is here. Are you bold enough to face it and own it?